Hi, my name is Bey Logan. I'm a Hong Kong-based film producer, author, and Kung Fu school owner, and I'm very excited to be talking to you today about the various activities and my past, present, and future plans. Well, I was born and raised in the middle of England, in a city called Peterborough. And my dad was an accountant, my mum was a nurse. And I was actually adopted. And from when I was a very young child, I had this fascination with Asian culture, and particularly, I think, martial arts, visual image, comic books, later TV and film. That's what was really driving my every waking hour. I was fascinated to find out about martial arts, to find out about movies, to find out about music. And my parents are very staid, square, respectable couple, so I think they were like, who is this cuckoo in the nest? What I didn't know at the time is that on the other side of the world in Australia, my birth mother, my biological mother, was doing karate with a famous Australian karate master. So somehow through the planet the energy of martial arts was being communicated. So I grew up in this very middle class home, and then when I was in my late teens said to my mom and dad, I want to go to Hong Kong and somehow make Kung Fu movies.
Let's travel memory lane, high off life with no ecstasy, man. Look at who I become. I left the hood, ain't no plan of return. Without no returns, invested my time. Hope someday these melodies pay off to remedy pain, dog.
The biggest star I've worked with was Jackie Chan, who I worked with for 5 years. I worked at a company called Media Asia. We did 2 documentaries together, Jackie Chan My Story, Jackie Chan My Stunts. And I did wrote and produced films for him, and then did The Medallion, which was this big special effects movie, and then the film called The Twins Effect, which was a big hit in Hong Kong. And that was my run, but I think that was about 5 years working for Jackie. Jackie, I can say, is like, as to quote the title of one of his other films, he really is Mr. Nice Guy. He genuinely is a kind and caring guy, and I can tell you a story, I think, that illustrates how I interact with him and who he is as a person. We were filming for The Twins Effect down on the waterfront near Tamar, near where at the time I think it was still the British Army barracks, and now of course it's the mainland Chinese barracks. But we were filming at night, it was a bit rainy, and we were under these kind of canvas covers, a bit like you might have for a wedding, like a blue awning with white metal legs, and we were under there all huddled up, and it was very dark, wasn't very well lit, and I was trying to write stuff for the script. I had a torch kind of almost in my mouth, and I'm writing, and Jackie walks past. What do you do? I said, I'm just walking on the script. I'm just, changing some lines. And he looks at me, and he says, what a mess. And then he goes away, and comes back. He's holding a single sneaker, and he takes out from the sneaker the lace, the shoelace. And then he takes the torch from me, and he ties one end of the lace to the torch, and the other end to the crossbeam above my head, so that the torch is now suspended from this poor guy's shoelace. And so I'm in this little pool of light, and I'm writing, and Jackie looks at me and he goes, now you have light. And I think this is Jackie. I mean, he's somebody who brings light to the world. I mean, he is more textured as a human being than that. I mean, there are aspects to him that, like all of us, that he has his flaws, and he has his own way of doing things. But my overall memory of working with him is universally good. And I did very much remember being in Ireland when we were making The Medallion. We were in Guinness country, where the beer comes from, and it's the greenest green. I know this is such a cliche, the Irish green, but it is. I mean, it's a green you could not get on special effects. So we're standing there, and Jackie's costume was like an English country lord, and I was in, kind of what I'm wearing now, and we were throwing a ball for a dog, and I turned to look, and I went, I can't believe I used to be like not that far away from Ireland in England watching Drunken Master, and now here I am working with the guy. So it was always challenging, because on one level you want to give of your best, you want to contribute, you want to have an opinion. At the other, sometimes, even me, you would suddenly sit and go, holy shit, Jackie Chan, you know? So it was intimidating, but also it was really rewarding, and I learned a lot from him. The whole short film phenomenon, to me, I think it's, everybody always says, I'm shooting a short film to use to get financing for a feature. But that never happens. Movies tend to be sourced, feature films come from the same sources they always have, which is talented directors of music videos and commercials. TV commercials probably is the most expensive film format, you know, apart from cinema itself. If you look at what they spend on a high-end commercial these days, it's fantastic, and it's a great, that's where the Scott brothers, Ridley and Tony Scott, came from the advertising world. The other thing is that you go the Quentin Tarantino route, which is that you have a kick-ass script. But this whole thing of you go into some professional filmmaker's office and you show them a short film, and it's so impressive that you get the money to make your movie. I don't know that it's ever happened. I mean, I think there was the guy, actually a South African filmmaker, the guy that did was it Area, I remember I forget the name of the movie now, Area 51? Well, no, it was like Neil Blomkamp. Yeah, he did that. He did a short film, and then he got his financing. And he's always used as the example, but to my knowledge, he was the only one. So I advise people to write a script or succeed in shooting commercials, in commercial filmmaking, and then make the transition into features.
Card, your wallet, your phone.
TMT, right?
That's all I have.
What's that stand for? TMT. Too much trouble.
Oh, by the way.
Was it Was it?
MTM.
MTM, sorry.
Mama told me.
Mama told me.
Let's take it.
That's for you. Souvenir.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, distributed by Golden Harvest.
Well, I feel that my position as an exile, you know, as a, you know, kind of a guy who's come in outside of the culture, it gave me like a unique perspective, because I don't think any Hong Kong or Chinese filmmaker could look at Hong Kong or Chinese film martial art culture as I do. So I suppose I always say, if you write a book, you should write the book only you should write, and if you make a film, you should make the film only you could make. So I think the films I've done have tended to be films where you had East meet West to whatever level. And in my own life, you know, my children are all a wonderful, joyous reflection of East meeting West, because they're all half Chinese, half whatever I am. And you should be, my feeling is that that in whatever way, all of my work has been balancing the duality of East and West. And so going forward, I think what I would hope to do in this next stage of my career is find a way to do more profound projects that can have, I just see, unfortunately, in my lifetime, little move towards any utopia. The West in chaos, the East in chaos. So I suppose at this time in my life, the only realistic, responsible focus is, what stories can you tell that have an intrinsic message, a subtext message? It's not like preaching, but there's a message to the film that hopefully, there's a message of hope that somehow shares something. I mean, recently we had a slate of films that we've been developing where I think the stories of each film, when you actually look at them, beneath the subtext, there was actually a message of hope, or a kind of a way forward, balancing aspects of East and West. And I think that's, in my view, that's a responsible approach of a filmmaker, is you've got to keep telling stories, but also looking at the state of the world. How can you use the medium to try to better the state of things? So that's my ambition going forwards. I think it's less challenging 30 years on being a European filmmaker working in Asia, because of just experience and also track record. When I first started out, it was really extraordinary. The level of racism, and people would say to me, it's reverse racism. I said, I don't think that exists. I think there's only racism, which is if you define somebody by their skin color or cultural background and not as an individual, then that's racism. But I remember when I first started at Media Asia, and everybody would get up and say, oh, we're going for lunch, and I would say, oh, I'm going to come along too. And they were like, well, we're going to be speaking Chinese. I said, well, I'm learning Chinese. And they said, we're going to be having Chinese food. Well, I like Chinese food. And it was kind of like, wouldn't you mind sitting at your desk, eating your white man sandwich, and speaking English? I mean, try that. I don't even want to say what the opposite would be, but can you imagine in England or America if you had a predominantly white workforce and one Indian dude, and you said, shut up, sit there speaking Hindi and eating your curry, you can't come down the pub with us, how that would play. But it was considered quite normal, and other Hong Kong people who I complained to all said, you know, well, yeah, of course, they were embarrassed not being able to speak good English, and they didn't want you around because you're a white guy. And I'm like, you know what, that doesn't really, you know what, it doesn't sound too great. You know, even if that's the truth, I don't know whether you should be stating it like it's so obvious, like, can't you see? The problem was that you were white. So what if I was black? That would be the problem too. And I was like, anyway, but I'm a great believer in what I call like TTT. I think that's copyright Bey, circle C, TTT, tolerance through talent. Because that's just an example. But there were other slights and other instances where I felt I was disrespected for being a white guy. And being a big white guy who's skilled in martial arts, sometimes you can be like, you know, you talk to me one more time or you diss me like that, I'm going to, you know. And the people get scared of you. But then they're scared of you and they'll find somebody else to do the job because they're going, why do I need to work with the big scary guy? But the key is, if you work harder, if you dedicate yourself, if you focus, then you get, people will tolerate you through talent. I think one of the frustrations, which I have experienced in Hong Kong cinema and now by expansion Chinese cinema, is the fact that we really have not had a significant amount of new blood, either in front of the camera as actors or behind the camera as directors. Given the massive Chinese population, where are these people, why are there not more new people coming in and making an impact? And I think it's an interesting phenomenon that the problem has been in Hollywood and in other film cultures. The older generation, either gracefully or otherwise, leave the stage to allow new talents to rise. But when I first went to see Hong Kong films in Birmingham, England, London, England, in the late night movies, the top directors were Choi Hark, Johnny To, you know, the late Benny Chan, Teddy Chen, and then the top actors were Chow Yun-fat, Tony Leung, Andy Lau, Jackie Chan. And now we're here 40 years later, and it's the same. Nobody has risen. There's no actor that I know of in Hong Kong or in China the level of Tony Leung or Andy Lau. Still.
Back in the days when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore. Some days I sit and wish I was a kid again. Friends hollering, can I play out? And not coming back to the Marjay said I couldn't stay out when your street was the playground and making sure you.
Well, thanks everybody. It's been so much fun talking to MTM. My name again, Bey Logan, and you can find out about my different activities primarily from www.reeleast, REELEAST.com. I run a film company out of this facility. We also have a Kung Fu school, both live and also on Zoom, where we teach different forms of the Chinese martial arts. We also have a memorabilia company. We have all of the existing memorabilia from the glory days of Hong Kong film, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, and many more. And you can find all that at reeleast.com. Also, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and all the usual platforms. But thank you so much. Hope if you're not in Hong Kong, we see you here sometime. And if you are in Hong Kong, don't be a stranger, y'all.